I've been in about 4 or 5 coaching programs over the past 3 or 4 years in entrepreneurship. And one thing that I've noticed is consistently, this isn't just one program. This is like every single program that I've been in. Usually there's other students in the program. They all have the same skill set. They all have the same mentorship, but there's two different groups of people. You have the people who act fast, who just go regardless of the circumstances. And those people end up making a lot of money and they're actually successful and they get good results in the program. The second group of people think they know what's best. They overthink everything. They don't actually act fast and they don't make progress throughout the duration of the program. And somehow they end up blaming it on external circumstances. Like I said, this isn't just one program. This is a pattern that I've spotted being around people who had access to the same teaching, the same resources and everything. And it goes to show that this is a skill that can be trained. It's not like it's all external circumstances that define success. A lot of it comes down to how fast you actually act and are you willing to put in the work. And after seeing this pattern over and over again, I noticed it stems from fear at the end of the day. This could be fear of not knowing what to do, fear of failing, or fear of I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to drown it out with distractions. For example, I'm just going to scroll Instagram all day. I'm going to put it off, and I'm not actually going to face the problem. And I'll talk more about that topic here in a minute, but it reminded me of when I first joined a program about a year ago, and I ended up meeting my co-founder at a mastermind. We were now like business partners and it's been great. But when we first met, we were talking about this a couple of days ago. He's like, the first thing I remember about you was you were that kid in the Discord who was filming ads in the snow. Like it was all snowing outside. And for context, I just joined the program. The first coaching call, my coach and I scripted out the ads. Right after, like within 30 minutes of hopping off that call, I went outside and it was snowing, but I still filmed the ads, got them all recorded, edited them the same day, and got them live the next morning. So from the time that we scripted the ads to the time they went live was less than 24 hours. And it's a perfect example of that being a skill that I had trained. It would have been so easy for me to say, oh, it's snowing outside, so I'll just wait a couple days until it melts. Or, oh, it's snowing, so the ads probably won't perform as well. Or whatever excuses I can come up with. And it really comes down to how badly do you want it? And have you trained this skill of acting fast regardless of the circumstances? And something that I noticed which was interesting is when you put off tasks and you just decide to keep procrastinating and keep pushing them off till tomorrow, the problem is that it overloads you mentally. You're always thinking about the work that needs to get done, but oftentimes you don't know what to do or how to do it, so you end up just distracting yourself with different vices, but the whole time it's just overloading you cognitively, and that tends to just wear you down. Versus on the other hand, when you actually just act fast, get it done without even thinking about it, without playing into any of your excuses, the funny thing is that gives you dopamine. You've already completed a quick win, and now you're on to the next task. And then you've done that task, now you're on to the next task. And it's a upward cycle versus a downward cycle if you continue to just keep pushing it off. Which leads me into my next point, which is when you're actually acting fast and not pushing things off, you start to build up like momentum. And momentum is huge when it comes to business. Once you have it, you're unstoppable. But it's so hard to get momentum if your timelines are so dragged out. If it takes you weeks to do something that would take the average person less than an hour, and that starts to compound. So if you can do a task that would take someone a week in an hour, well, now you have 12 hours in a day that you can work, and then you compound that over a week. That's how you actually get real momentum, and that's how you see a lot of the people who just stay continually stuck stay stuck. That's why they stay stuck. It's because they're always dragging out their timelines, and the people who are just acting fast and getting it done, those are the people who are just compounding and building up forward momentum, which is hard to compete with. And a pattern that I've noticed in my own life is there will be times where business is just naturally slower. There's external circumstances that make it so there's not a whole lot of work for me to do, and some of it just comes down to waiting. But I have noticed keeping that momentum is so important. So this is a concept I just want to drill home. It's like once you have momentum, you have to fight so hard to actually keep it. So even if there's a slow period in business, just realize, okay, it's a little bit slower in business, but how can I keep this momentum? And when business is slow, oftentimes I'll double down on my fitness. Or recently I've been doubling down on just posting YouTube or going out doing cold approaches just to practice speaking. That's why I'm doing this YouTube thing in the first place, just to practice communication. And all this to say, it's just continually putting in the work to keep forward progress, keep acting, because as soon as you slow down and you start overthinking everything and taking longer to make decisions, that becomes a pattern and it ends up slowing you down in the future. So do whatever you can to keep the momentum. And that ties into the point of this video, which is just acting fast. Don't let yourself have any downtime. Just keep going. And going back to the topic of fear, which I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is oftentimes fear is disguised by just scrolling Instagram or scrolling TikTok to drown out the fact that you really don't know what to do. And something I've found very helpful in situations like that is just to strip all the devices. So, open up one tab, maybe open up a document on your computer, close out every single tab, put your phone in a different room, just remove all of the devices, all of the distractions. And oftentimes it's helpful just to sit with the unknown. Like, for example, this is a perfect example. When I was scripting this video, I had the idea, which is just act fast, condensed timelines. That was like the general idea. I had nothing else to go off of. But what I did is I just removed every distraction and just sat with this Google document for about an hour until I actually had a structured outline for this video. But I wouldn't have gotten to that point where I have a good outline if I had just continued to scroll Instagram or just distract myself checking emails or finding anything to do but the work. So oftentimes it just comes from removing every distraction and sitting with it, even if you don't know what to do. I didn't know what I was going to script in this video, but by giving myself the space to actually just think and start just getting thoughts out on paper was enough to start building some momentum. And as soon as I started writing things, then I got more ideas. And those ideas, again, would not have come if I had just been distracting myself with other things rather than just doing the work. And something I've found helpful when it comes to the tasks that are generally under 5 minutes. With tasks like that, it's basically the same amount of time if you want to take that task and schedule it out. It takes just as much time to just do the task. For example, there was a client that we signed. We shouldn't have signed them. They were the lowest paying client and also the most picky. And she kept texting me. She'd send me paragraphs of complaints. She's like, oh, I want you to change this, change that. I don't like this. And just overall picky client. And I had to get back to her at some point. But instead, I would just read the text and not want to think about it. And that would weigh me down cognitively for 2 or 3 days till I finally got back to her. Versus after realizing that pattern, I started just seeing the text, even though it's uncomfortable and I don't want to reply to this stupid person, just seeing it and be like, okay, I have to reply at some point, so might as well just knock it out then. So if you have small tasks that are under 5 minutes, even if they're uncomfortable, just face it. Because the downside is if you don't face it, you're still thinking about it throughout the day, when you go to bed, and it just weighs you down, and you multiply that by 10, 15, 20 small tasks, then it becomes very hard to actually get anything done because you're just so overloaded by all the things that you know need to get done, but you're not actually willing to face them. So what can you do as a viewer to actually implement what I'm talking about in this video? Well, the first thing I would say is just start by stripping all the vices and distractions so you can just get a clear picture as to what needs to get done. Oftentimes, that's the first step, and that gives you clarity on what you actually need to do. Recently, I was always scrolling Instagram. That was like 2 weeks ago, and I just cut it off completely. And by doing that, I realized I had goals that I hadn't even been chasing because I thought I was too busy. But it also just gave me so much clarity on what I needed to get done because I wasn't drowning it out. Like, there's stuff that needs thought. You need to actually think about what needs to get done. But when it's hard, you end up by default just numbing it and by distracting yourself. So if you can remove the distractions, you can get clear on what needs to get done. And then the next step would just be to condense the timelines. So if now you know what needs to get done, now do your best to just bring tasks forward. If you think it'll take a week, ask yourself, can I physically do this task in an hour? Can I do it in 30 minutes? And just condense your timelines. And then by doing that, you'll actually be able to get way more done in a week than you've done in a whole month. And the last thing would just be to continue to double down on that. So now that you have clarity, now that you've condensed your timelines, now that you're putting in the work, just keep compounding that and try to keep the momentum. Like I said, once you lose momentum, it's very hard to get it back. So just always stay busy, even if it's not business related. Like I was talking about, there are periods where business is slower or fitness is slower. So find other avenues to just keep yourself moving, because the moment you fall into, just unproductiveness and not actually doing anything, you start training yourself to push off tasks and not actually keep that momentum. And after doing this, you'll start to build momentum. You'll start stacking consistent wins. And those wins, like I said, give you dopamine, which fuel you to stay in that forward momentum. And soon you'll be moving faster than all the competition. So hopefully this was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.